Welcome back to Digging Deeper. Today we're talking about the 4 principles of talent acquisition. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Hello and welcome to tonight's show.
Today we have with us very special guests. We have our Senior Vice President of RPO, Emily Gordon, with how many years of experience in talent acquisition? Like 30?
Just under.
Just under 30?
Right.
She started when she was 10.
Exactly.
She started when she was 10. And then we have our Senior Vice President of Marketing and Strategy, Julie Arsenault. No relation.
None.
Let's start with, there are 4 principles of talent acquisition that we have, I wouldn't say we discovered, we determined based off of, years and years, hundreds of years of combined experience in the world of talent acquisition. So, which one of you wants to go first as far as Julie? All right, Julie. What are the 4 principles of talent acquisition?
So the 4 principles of talent acquisition, and again, this is based a lot on everybody's team and the work that we've done and Emily's experience in the field and her team's experience. So it's people, process, platforms, and partners.
All right, let's get a little bit of context for all of
Okay.
those. So obviously those are it's a bit vague. So when we say people within the context of talent acquisition, what specifically are we talking about when it comes to people?
That's the human interaction.
Right.
So human to human, that's a huge part of talent acquisition because talent acquisition sounds so abstract, but it's like, do I want to spend an unnatural amount of time working with you in the future? And how are you making me feel about that? And if I'm working in that and I have managers and I have candidates, how do I feel about the people that I'm around?
Okay. And then process. Emily, why don't you take this one? When we say process as it relates to talent acquisition, and specifically within the framework of this conversation, what are we referring to?
So we have the candidate, we have the recruiter, and then we have the manager.
Yeah.
And so all those people that interact within that process, you want it to feel like it's being done with them and not to them.
Right.
And so it's all the things that they interact with,
Yeah.
how easy it is, et cetera.
Okay. And then platforms. What do we mean by platforms? Because platforms can be mean a lot of things, but what do we mean by platforms? Either of you, doesn't matter. Jump in.
I would say specifically it's like software or tools that you're using.
Okay.
Like if you're doing everything based on like paper forms that you're passing around, then that is your platform.
Or even Google Sheets is a bit.
Google Sheets.
We'll get into like what the levels are.
ATS.
But yeah, it's essentially the technology that allows the
Combination
process to function.
of different platforms, yeah.
Right. And then finally, partners, the 4th part. Partners probably the most obvious, but partners are just
Who you work with,
who you
right?
work
Who you
with.
interact with to
Yeah.
get it done. So whether it's from an advertising perspective, a recruitment perspective, vendors of any kind, anybody
Right.
that helps you with data, all of it.
Okay. All right. Now, and you kind of brought this up earlier, but when we talk about the 4 principles of talent acquisition, people, process, platform, and partners, there's 3 perspectives that we've kind of look at it from. And we'll get to, there's a whole test for this, and we'll get it to everybody. But there are 3 perspectives that we want to look at each of these principles from. And those 3 perspectives are candidates. Mm-hmm. So those are the people that are actually going through your talent acquisition system, the people you're trying to hire. The recruiters, the people who are engaging with said candidates. And then the manager, the person who overlooks the entire talent acquisition, has a title like Director of Talent Acquisition, maybe an HR title of some sort, but the idea is they overlook the whole thing. They're responsible. They're going to be the person in the office saying, answering for all the deliverables,
Correct.
shall we say.
Sure.
Long time to think for just a word like deliverables.
Results.
Well,
KPIs, if you will.
KPIs. Now put that in. So the first section, when we talk about people, first principle, from the candidate experience, and what we've done is you say, and you'll get all this from the TSAT. Obviously, this will be surface level for a very deep conversation. But when we talk about people, from the candidate perspective, we're going to kind of rank these of like good, better, best, base level, rookie level, veteran, all-star, however you want to think about it. Call in. Let us know. So we have people.
Yep.
candidates, base level, a candidate,
Yeah.
what should be his human experience as a base level for candidates? Emily, why don't you take this one?
That they should feel like they can talk to somebody, that they have somebody on their side. Ideally, as you kind of go up in the levels, and then as you continue to go up, you'd want it to be an advisor, somebody, a trusted advisor for you, somebody you feel like the information they're telling you is actually true.
Right.
They're doing what they say when they say they're going to do it.
Yeah.
But at a base level, a human helps.
Right.
And then having various levels of information and guidance throughout the process is important.
Well,
So, yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
Can I just say on that, because I also have candidate advisory boards where I talk to people who are in the job search and things like that.
Yep.
And you would be surprised how many people don't hit that table stakes level of I was treated like a human.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know you've listened to a bunch of candidate calls, you've listened to a bunch of candidate calls, and you're on there and somebody calls in, they're like, hey, I'm looking for a job, which is a scary process for somebody.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of change. And they get like, have you applied here before? Give me your work history. Like, have you been to our website?
My favorite is dead air, just complete dead air when they ask them something and the recruiter is obviously looking for something, but there's no consideration of the other person on the phone. Like, I can't see you. I don't know what you're doing. And just tell me what you're doing. And that actually is kind of
That's so
the
true.
whole process along the way, right?
Yeah.
I always attribute it to the pizza tracker. You know, if you have a sleepover full of people at your house, I have teenage girls, I have a 17-year-old daughter, and they're waiting for the food to come. They want to know, is it in the oven? Is it in the car? Is it where? Same thing with jobs, right? People want to know what's happening. They want the process to be something that they can trust. But it starts with, hi, answering the phone and acting like you're excited for the person to be on the other end of the phone versus like recruiting, you know, and that has happened. So we gotta watch it.
Table stakes level, the base is like they need to feel like they're talking to a human and that they're being treated as a human. And then when we get to the top, you feel like you have an advisor, someone that's on your side that is, what's the word I'm looking for here? Whatever. Advocating. An advocate.
That's what I was going to say.
That's the word. Advocating for you.
That's right.
Well, and like the mid-level is like, they don't necessarily have to feel like you're an advocate, but the step up from human is feel like they're being honest with you.
Right.
Because I don't know if you guys are on Reddit. I love Reddit. I like going to the sub for recruiting hell.
Yeah.
And they talk about just how many times the bait and switch happens in the recruiting process. And so people go into that conversation already very suspicious.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a used car salesman. Yeah, there's a human interaction there, and you feel like you're a human talking to a human, but you never trust a word they say.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, now we got to move fast here. We're still on the people, but people from the perspective of recruiter. What should his human interaction be like as a recruiter? Table stakes level recruiter. Where are we on that one?
So they need to feel like they actually have somebody to work with. So I think we talk about the manager being accessible. Knowing where to go if they need help for something, those types of things.
All right, and then what would you say? We're kind of skipping over mid-tier just so we move fast. That's base level. Top of the class. What should it look like from a human perspective for a recruiter?
What do you think?
That's like they really believe in the story they're telling.
Yeah.
And they feel passionate about how they're helping the candidate.
Okay.
So then they're no longer just like selling, processing, trying to get their numbers in.
Yeah.
But they're like, I'm excited that my job is to help you.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's that they believe what they're doing.
Yes.
You know, they have that pride in their work, and they really feel like they're helping not just the person, that's great, but also the company achieve its goals and targets, and that they're seen as somebody that's valuable to the organization. I think one of the things that happens from a recruiting perspective is it's seen as a cost center. It's always seen as just blatant expenditure.
Right.
And the reality is it's a profit center when you help with cost of vacancy and things like that. So including your recruiters in understanding how they impact the business in a positive way and how important their job is really, when we get to the manager part, it's kind of the two-way street there.
Okay. Yeah. So let's perfect segue. Manager, human perspective, or the people part of this. What is the base level for manager human interaction?
I think is that they have enough people to do the work. They actually have people to do the work.
Yeah. Okay. And then top of the class, what are we looking at?
Hired guns, right? They believe that their team is capable, that they are able to articulate the story. They know how to get the information they need to execute, and they're doing that at a level that is above the just baseline KPIs.
Yeah. All right. You have anything you want to add to that? You get 20 seconds.
Okay. I think related to that is at the highest level for all three perspectives, it's you're on my side for the driver, candidate, technician, whatever it is. And then for the recruiter, it's, I believe that I'm on your side because I believe my story. And then for the manager, it's, I believe that everybody is all working together and I have trust in the process. I have trust in the people to enact the process and whatever else is happening. So when you have that kind of humanity that's going throughout the whole process, it all feeds into each other to make for a high performing talent acquisition team.
On the last Digging Deeper, our guest said that trust equals revenue. And I told him I'd steal it from him. So there I did. I stole it from him.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Moving on to the second principle of talent acquisition, which is process. Process from the candidate perspective. Process from the candidate perspective. Anybody want to go first?
I can. I think the process from the candidate perspective is that, again, it's not being done to them, but for them and with them. It's easy to access. So I think one of the initial things we talked about kind of jokingly is it on paper? Is it digital? Is it mobile? And then the barrier to entry, right? You're always looking at how difficult is it for me as an applicant to actually get that process started? And then as we move up the chain, right? Am I aware of what's going on, et cetera?
Can you give me I know you have a lot of anecdotes, but
Sure.
could you give me an anecdote of
Few stories.
of a process being a nightmare for a candidate?
Sure. So, I mean, there's simple things that people think are making it easier, like saying just upload your LinkedIn profile. Well, in certain roles, people don't have a LinkedIn profile, and so that's a barrier to entry. Or if it's not mobile, or there are lots of boxes you have to fill out, and you're on your phone and you're trying to do it. Imagine, you're out on the road or something like that, or you're in the warehouse and it's your lunch break or something. You're trying to figure out how to fill this in, and it's, the exact date needs to be in there. It's your full background check type profile just to apply for a job. That's one. I think the other things are, you do whatever you're supposed to do and you have no acknowledgement of, did that work? Did that just go? Is this on? You don't know if it actually happened.
Yep.
And then I think further, it's the people set up a lot of like auto responses and things like that for candidates. And some candidates will get a decline before they've ever even been contacted because someone's moving through a system, things like that. So there are a lot of nightmarish type opportunities.
You could go for a
I think
while.
it starts with anytime that there's a need to be on site to fill out a paper application, not always ideal. And or if it's not mobily optimized, or there's a ton of information just to get the initial consideration.
Okay. What do you have to say about process, Julie?
Well, I think the big thing for this is it's related to people, but you have to have empathy for the candidate, because a lot of times, like you said, the processes are set up not for them,
Right.
but it's being done to them. But sometimes it's because we're setting up the process for the manager.
That's right.
And for the other stakeholders in the business. And so I think a part of developing a good process is becoming a good advocate within your organization of, I know that'd be really nice for you to have, and you'd really like to have that information and all of these steps in this order. But from the candidate's perspective, that's a nightmare. So you have to kind of be an advocate for the candidates and help people develop empathy for people going through this process.
Process from the recruiter's perspective. Process from the recruiter's perspective. All right, let's go. What's table stakes for process, the recruiter perspective? Go, Julie.
Okay. That is, they understand what they're supposed to do, which you wouldn't think would be table stakes, but it is.
Absolutely.
So I love going to visit clients and going to sit in with their recruiters just to learn more about their struggles and what they're going through. And there's so many times there will be like phones ringing, emails coming in, they're unsure what to do. And then they're going around asking everybody, printing something out and saying like, okay, so which form am I supposed to fill out at this point? And is it in my ATS, or is it in the HRIS, or is it in this other Google sheet that I have, or is it in some separate system?
People love to create Google Sheet
Personal
nightmares.
tracker. I keep my own personal tracker.
Yes.
Worst nightmare. Exactly.
And
right.
then, that they find, they're like, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go talk to the most experienced recruiter because I can't find my manager. And they're like, oh, I just put it in my notebook.
Yeah.
Right. Post-its. Whatever.
Yeah. So having a set process just provides a lot of clarity and confidence for the recruiter, so that they're focusing on the candidate, not on which box they're supposed to check that creates that dead air that you were talking about.
One of the things that leads to is why, right? So why do people create trackers? Why do people create different processes that are outside of the standard? Why do we have multiple systems when a lot of times a system could do it?
Yes.
And it usually comes back to what Julie said, is some manager somewhere needs this data point here. And so we have to put it here, or we don't know how to maximize our systems and our platforms that we're using.
Yeah.
And so we cause a lot of waste. And so when you think about a production line and you think about Six Sigma type stuff, right? It's how do I make it more efficient? How do I reduce waste? Motion is a form of waste. And so in this case, every time a recruiter or a manager or a candidate has to go into multiple systems and fill out the same thing or find something, you're creating waste cycles, which causes dissatisfaction and opportunity for error. And so all of those things are things you want to consider when you're looking at your process and your platforms that you're using. Does that make sense? Is it helping everybody, again, going back to the people, have the best experience? And I think that one of the things that it's really easy to do from the outside is walk into somebody's house and say, that lamp shouldn't be there.
Right.
Same thing when we come in from a consulting perspective. It's easy for us because we do it a lot. We see things. We've tried lots of things. We get to test things. And that's all that this really does is it gives you the TASAT or TASAT or whatever we're going to call it, whatever you guys want to. I think that it's
we'll figure it out.
Thanks, appreciate it. I don't know what it is. It's really helpful though.
I don't either.
I think that the thing that you want to consider is how do I get an outside view starting with me? Can I actually take this and look at something and say, okay, this could help me have a view, or I could actually get some help from a good partner.
Okay. Well, we didn't quite describe. We talked about all the bad parts, but I don't want to leave this out. If we talk about best in class for a process, and maybe we can kind of merge recruiter, manager here. Best in class for process, what does it look like?
Ideally, it's a singular system that has a very clear push-pull process in it where the dashboard and the action items for everybody are there. Automatically reporting is available, so you can create control plans and make sure that if somebody has too much to do, not enough to do, et cetera.
Right.
And I just want to point out, so we're talking about having one system in place. We're talking about platforms after this, right?
Correct.
The platforms and the process really work together very well, but you can have a best-in-class platform and a really sucky process.
That is true.
And you
We'll
can have
bleep that.
we can have a great process.
Can't say sucky?
No, you can't. I'm just kidding.
Sorry, guys.
So if you have the best-in-class process, if you're working really, you can do that even with limitations in your platform.
You can.
You can. Ideally, those work together, but you need to understand your process so that when you're picking out your platform or building your platform, it's your process driving that instead of just having this arbitrary third-party platform saying, and this is what your process is, because that can go back to leading to people problems because people are just being forced into something and it doesn't give them the time to be human and interact with them because I have to check all these boxes.
There's a lot of interdependency, but I think what happens a lot of times is whoever is developing the platform process, right, for the CRM or the ATS is sometimes not a talent acquisition person, but it could be in HR. It could be a C-level person who's just like, this is what we need it to do so we can do payroll. And so we're not, sometimes we get forced into one thing based on affordability, or scale, et cetera. So just having the ability to look at it and say, what could we do here within our platform and not being held hostage by it is important. And that's where a partnership is important too, because they're going to help you figure that out.
Been there, done that.
That's the other P.
All right.
It's like I've been here.
And, and we've now perfectly segued to our third P.
Principle.
Third principle. Platforms. All right. Platforms from the candidate experience. What's table stakes for platforms at the candidate experience?
It is, I can go in and fill it out on my phone.
I think so. We wouldn't have used to have said that, but that's actually true. It has to be mobile. So many of candidates don't even have a laptop that they're working off of or unless it's a work computer or something like that. But I also think it is the invisibility that the platform doesn't seem like something else they have to do. It's just easy for them.
Yeah, I've noticed. I'd like to get your thoughts on this, if we can chase a rabbit trail for a second.
Sure.
Career pages that make you sign in and create an account.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
How do you feel about that? I see that a bunch.
It does happen a lot, and it's because they don't want other people filling out information for you, so they want you to have a unique identifier, and it's to protect your personal information. But that is a frustration for a lot of people, especially if they've already been to that system. They don't remember their password. Now they have to create a new one. Then it says, oh, we've already got this name, and there's a duplicate. So there's a lot of it that's good, and a lot of it's that's not so good. And the goal would be that somebody was able to fill that information out, and at the end, set up their own password like you do if you go shopping. Like, do you want to shop as a guest or do you want to shop as a person with a profile, right? So I think that option is better.
Well, and that's kind of how I like to think of the platform is you have to realize that candidate expectations are shaped by their consumer experiences.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I am maybe particularly lazy, but I've been like, oh, I'm totally going to buy this thing from Instagram. And I go through and it doesn't have the Instagram checkout. So then it's going through. And that next thing I know, I'm on the product website and I've got everything filled out and I'm ready to buy. And then it doesn't have a buy with Amazon, Google, Apple Pay, something on there. And I'm like, am I going to get up and go to a different room and find my wallet and pull out a card and type in numbers? No.
Right. Unless you really want it.
But not bad enough.
Yeah, right, exactly. Enough. Or just go to Amazon and say, is this the same product here? Can I just get it here?
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the same thing that happens when somebody starts looking for a job.
Yep.
Once they start looking, they're probably looking at 6 or 7 other opportunities.
Right.
That's something we found out. And I think that it's important to understand barrier to entry is going to be one of the biggest hurdles. Make yourself appealing to people by being easy to talk to.
All right. So I think we could say, and you basically did say this, but I'm going to pretend like I said it.
Classic.
Basically, the platform is the technology that supports the process.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if we say the ideal process for a recruiter is that they always know what to do next, that it is giving them actually more time in their day to have more human interactions and treat each candidate like they're individual and be an advocate for them. How does the platform support that process?
I think there's a lot of things that you look at. So are my calls integrated into the platform or do I have to enter it? Is the application or the person, does it pop up when their phone number pops up if there's a match? Is there a place for me to take my notes there? Do I have to take my notes somewhere else? Are all of the candidates' questions, can I enter why I'm talking to them? Can I actually do data entry for them? And then all the way through to, does it push to the hiring manager? Does it push to the, the background check vendor? All of those things. So if all of that can happen in one place, that's great. And then everybody can see your notes and everything's under the candidate record and it works. Generally speaking, that is rare. You usually have a different phone system and an applicant tracking system, but sometimes you also have what's called a CRM, which is before someone becomes an applicant, these are my leads. Yeah. These are my things where they haven't filled out a full application. And so now you're in 3 places, phone, CRM, ATS. And then you have an HRIS. Hey, I want to onboard this person. So they go in there. So now you're in 4 systems. Right. And as a recruiter, you may not have access to the HRIS part. It just goes over the wall and you're like, let me know if it works out, everybody, hope they start and all that stuff. And so then your manager comes to you and says, I need to know how many people started. Oh, I need to go find this report. And then you're distracted. So you're in this loop of like, let me figure out where the data is or not. So if, and there are some, you can set up your HRIS system to be connected to your ATS. Yep. And all that's in one system and your phone system can ring into it. You're in a good place. It's a good start.
All right. Julie, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that was a great answer.
Okay.
Nailed it.
Let's move on to the final one then. Partners. Talking about partners now, which we are partnered to many people on this call. When we talk about partners as a principle of talent acquisition, how should that affect candidates?
Not at all. Should be invisible.
That's right.
What does that even mean?
So in some cases, we recruit for customers and we're branded as them. So the candidate doesn't know that we are actually a different company. They don't have to apply in 2 different places. They're not getting brand confusion. And so it's one place for them to apply and a continual process.
Give me an example, without naming any names, of when this is done poorly. What does that look like?
I think when it's done poorly, what happens is the candidate gets confused and they say, I don't know who I'm talking to, or you said you were from X company, but you're having me apply to Y company. Yeah. And so I think this is a scam.
Yeah, that would be bad.
It does happen.
What about partners from the recruiter standpoint?
Most of the times, if I'm an in-house recruiter and I'm working with different partners, it means I'm getting inundated with different candidate leads, right? Right. So then they come in and different partners may say, give me different points of information. They're not telling me what step that candidate is in the process. So I call them. I'm like, hey, thanks so much for applying. And they're like, no, I just filled out like a little bit of minor interest on this form. Right. Or somebody else are like, hey, let me tell you about the company. And they're like, I've applied 3 times. Yeah. So if you're not getting a good sense of the leads that are coming in and if they are actually qualified for positions that you are tasked with filling, right. That's what it looks like when you don't trust your partners. I think there's another level you can take that to where if you have partners who are strategically adept in their fields and with those roles, they're going to provide you competitive information. So as a recruiter, I can say, hey, David, thanks. I'm so glad that you're applying. I'm excited about this. Can you tell me a little bit about what else you're looking for? And I'd be like, well, I happen to know that their advertised pay is 20% lower than ours. and we have better reviews, we have like better benefits. So you got to take all that into consideration, but you become a more active partner for the candidate because you understand the landscape that they are dealing with.
Right. What about from the manager perspective?
You need somebody to be a trusted advisor for you from a data perspective. I think is one of the biggest partnerships that we see, where whether it's market intelligence or why is this position so hard to fill, are our pay rates in the right range, all of those types of things. But also, what else could I be doing to attract candidates or to be that employer of choice in the area? And people that can help you with that are really important. I think your partnerships can also be your vendors, right? So your tech vendors, people are helping you maximize your systems, things that you need, and getting the data out of those systems that you need. And then I think finally, it's even within your organization, having partnerships with other business lines or unit owners to say, hey, help me understand what we can do to be a better partner for you. Having that kind of give and take is really important too.
Okay. Well, then we moved through all of it. And we did it pretty fast. But let's give each of you you get a final 1 minute summary of everything we talked about, of just the overview. If like I'm going to move through this real fast, someone asked me, what are the 4 principles and why do they matter? You get a 1 minute go. Edit. Ready?
All right.
Julie first. Go.
Can I read from the summary that I wrote before?
It's not really fair to Emily, but
I'm good.
Sure.
I got it.
So the 4 principles methodology, when you're applying that to your system, it gives you a broader sense of how your talent acquisition organization is performing as a whole, how healthy it is, where you need to move next. And it's making sure that you consider all parts of that system and you're considering all of the different perspectives that create that. Because I think sometimes we get myopic when we're looking at our talent acquisition of, well, I need better KPIs. So you go through and you're just like jacking up everything for the candidate and the recruiter experience. Or I need to implement this platform and it's derailing your ability to work with people and completely changing your process. Or you're like, I'm switching out vendors without really thinking about how that affects all the other parts of that. So I think the real value of that is it helps you have a holistic view that helps you become a high-performing talent acquisition team.
Okay. Emily, your turn. 1 minute.
So I think of it like a Rubik's Cube, right? If one side is all the right color, that's fine. But if the others are all messy, then it's not working. So this gives you, I think there's more sides on a Rubik's Cube, but let's just go with the
I liked it.
Thanks so much. And so I think the most important thing is that you consider all 4.
Right.
I think a lot of times we, again, get focused on one of the areas at a time, and that ripple effect is really important.
Yeah.
I also think that this in particular gives you a methodology to go to anybody in your company or your recruiters or even your candidates and say, these are things we're focused on. How are we doing? What do you think from the outside? And we'd love your opinion, and we want to get to work and doing it the right way.
Well, very good. And of course, we have the TASAT. I imagine you.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to do like a
I thought we were spelling
YMCA style thing.
TASAT.
You got it. You got it.
Talent Acquisition System Assessment Tool, where you, the audience, can benchmark all of these against other talent acquisition teams. You can benchmark each of the 4 principles by all 3 perspectives to see where you measure up. And I think what's the average right now? Do we know?
49.
49. That's 49 out of 100.
77.
49 out of 77.
Keeping it weird.
Is the average score so far. See if you can beat it. But we will be singing this out to everybody.
I don't think this is what most people would predict, but the overall perspective that has the lowest scores is the manager score. Yeah. They do not have a good time. The highest average score is for the candidate for partners. So your vendors, your partners are doing a great job of not intruding into the candidate process.
Yep.
The lowest intersection of the 4 principles, 3 perspectives.
Yep.
The absolute worst average is the process for recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
That wouldn't have been my guess. My guess was going to be candidates with people was going to be my guess.
Nope. That one is 56 out of 100.
Oh, so your biggest areas for improvement for most talent acquisition teams is the process that your recruiters are using.
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
But that shows like it's an interesting balance of the reputation of recruiters in the market as being like big lying liars. And when you actually survey the recruiters and they get benchmarked, they're like, I actually do believe in what I'm doing. Which shows how the process gets in the way of that human connection between candidate and recruiter.
I think at the end of the day, when you look at all this, is would you work for you? Or would you, would you apply to your job? Would you go through your process? As a recruiter, would you be excited about being here? And as a manager, are you equipped to do what you're being asked to do? And all of those things just give you perspective.
That's it.